come before you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
For many, we acknowledge this Sunday as Good Shepherd Sunday, and so it would be difficult to not address Psalm 23, in addition perhaps to the Gospel. I think there's something so familiar about Psalm 23, well beyond the familiarity that we may have with these passages, these verses from the Gospel of John. And I wondered to myself, how many in hearing Psalm 23 or seeing that Psalm 23 was part of the liturgy this morning were excited. And I suppose, and if I know some of those who may be watching from home, I would wager, I'm not the betting type, I would wager that at least a few of you said the King James Version, despite what was in the bulletin. It didn't matter what we published. The King James was utterly familiar. In fact, a few of you have acknowledged this was perhaps some of the only verses you knew well by memory before. And it's interesting, even in our own prayer book, where we have an entire setting for the Psalms, and all of the Psalms are in our prayer book, that Psalm 23 is also included in the King James Version in the context of our right for burial. Now, I think it would be hard to preach on Psalm 23 without at least offering you the chance to hear it in the King James Version, in addition to the reading that's happened already. You can say it along with me if you know it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's beautiful. Now, I'd like to read it from at least one more translation. And while this may make some of you cringe a little bit, I think just as the image of shepherd is somewhat disfamiliar in our modern age, I think we need to hear that which is familiar, the 23rd Psalm in the King James Version, reframed in different language to help us reimagine the image of shepherd as well. So here, on the other end of the spectrum, really, we have the King James, very ancient sacred. We'll use the Message, or not even a translation, but a paraphrase by scholar Eugene Peterson. God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid when you walk at my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head with my cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. The Lord is my shepherd. While these may have some contrast in language, I think the understanding of them is utterly the same. And I would say also that that while the ancient image of shepherd, I've known very few shepherds. I've known people with sheep, but I've known very few shepherds. So even this image that John offers in the Gospel of the sheep gate is somewhat unfamiliar. But I do know that the concept here where there are times and beings that respond to a voice and trust. And to that end, I have had many shepherds in my own life. I think as a child, my parents were thoroughly shepherds of me. I was probably the challenging sheep that would, yes, go through the gate when called, but might bang into it along the way or need to be reminded, yes, the gate's this way repeatedly. But it didn't end there. I think there were many others who were shepherds to me. Some of the shepherds I remember most fondly from my childhood beyond my parents would have been those who helped guide me at church, and a few teachers who seemed to care well beyond whether or not I understood the lesson being presented in the immediate context. As my life continues, I see that others have been shepherds to me. My family remains shepherd to me. My parents still, in many ways, are shepherds to me. My wife, even though it flips the image a bit, in some sense, my children are shepherds to me. They remind me of the blessings that I have. And they call me forth into a more joyful existence. There are other adults who've been shepherd to me, and some here at Ascension who have helped guide me towards life, that we might have it abundantly. And the imagery of this psalm, I think, is significant. It begins exalting God in this image of shepherd. And then as we get into the middle, we understand things maybe a little bit differently. We see, I shall not want, even towards the beginning, as we merge into the more difficult things. And we could easily get caught up in this language of want, because frankly, I want a lot of things. Maybe you do too. But to want things is different than to be in want. And as we seek out God as our shepherd, as we place our trust in Jesus as the good shepherd, our wants should shift too. As we try to place ourselves in union with God, our want often becomes less about us and more about us. And I think that there's comfort even in the challenges. And this is where the center of this psalm is so important. It's not to say that God abandons us in those challenges, but God calls us forth from them. And maybe that's where we need this image of shepherd most of all. In the coming weeks, I expect that we will receive counsel from a great variety of sources, as we have these last weeks. Some will urge us to rush back to things that we have known, and others will be voices of caution. And while the many voices are each helpful in their own way, I hope that we keep our ear attuned to the Good Shepherd and seek the guidance of God. We are in a difficult time. And it's the Good Shepherd that will guide us towards the gate, which is also Jesus. I think if we listen for God and trust that through God's wisdom and the guidance of the Holy Spirit, that we might be guided well in the weeks ahead, we will, as this psalm does, close out our time with words of joy and comfort as well. this Psalm 23 is short enough that it is easy to learn. Perhaps it would serve us well to hold it before us in the weeks ahead as a reminder to keep God as our shepherd and Jesus as the gate. I hope that whichever translation or iteration of this psalm you prefer, that it might be a meditation for us as we meditate on these sacred words in this psalm that extols God as shepherd. We might find the guidance of God in each moment as well.